right. All right. Welcome to the 48th episode of the Actual Astronomy podcast. In this episode, Sheen and I recount a recent observing session where we were attacked by a moose.
If you say so. That intro will probably only appeal to Canadians too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So,
and not far away, the bull moose. Some bulls weigh as much as 1,800 pounds. But
yeah, so I think it was a moose that was out there eating that tree.
Well, maybe. I will stand in the middle and say
It's
without
a bear.
visual confirmation, it could have even have been a Sasquatch. So who knows?
So I didn't tell you guys this because when I was out there before you guys showed up, I was walking around and I found like those giant hoof prints from a moose.
Mm.
And so it seems like that's why I was so certain. I'm like, oh, I guess that's the moose. Because I've seen lots of moose prints in the past, and then seen the moose, and then to see the prints, and then to hear a giant animal eating a tree. It seems like.
Yeah, there is something out there, and there are a few moose around here, so anything's possible.
I think that's a good spot for a moose.
Yeah, it's well treed, water sources, and like it's a nature preserve or something like that.
Yeah.
And animals are smart; they know where to go to not get shot. So.
Yeah, or they're just not shot in those areas.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it was so much fun observing with you guys again. Like really have missed that during the pandemic, and in the times we've tried it, it hasn't quite worked out.
Yeah, it was really nice to get out and have some other astronomers around to look at the sky. That was really nice. The times we have tried to get out, like just a few weeks ago,
yeah,
the forecast looked great. We drove just outside of our city, and it just, prior to driving, we looked outside and said, what happened to the good forecast?
Yeah.
All of a sudden we were clouded over and we were foiled. But last night it was at least clear. That's about all I'll say about it.
It was really good. I mean, yeah, it was really clear. Just the seeing was atrocious. It was just terrible seeing conditions, I thought anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Like there's that balance of transparency and seeing, and sometimes they both don't line up very well, and the transparency was really good last night.
Yeah,
but the seeing
super clear.
Terrible. Like I'm used to looking at Jupiter and Saturn a lot this year and not having great seeing because they're so low on the horizon. But when I was looking at a double star in Andromeda last night, Almach, I couldn't believe how turbulent the sky was. Like, I thought my mount was broken with the way it was just hopping and bouncing around in the field of view. It was incredible.
Yeah, and I was getting a lot of that too. And then as well, like your 76 millimeter was giving a crisper image than my 100, which was clearly a result just of the linear increase in the effect on the telescope that 100 millimeter will have over 76. Like I could actually see in your telescope the planet was moving like around, and in mine I was getting that averaging because it's collecting more photons. That's ridiculously bad. Like usually in the past when I've had bad seeing, you would need to go from like an 80 millimeter to something like an 8 or a 10-inch telescope to see that kind of difference in the seeing. So that was bad seeing.
Yeah, it really was. Still a fun night. And I changed up some of my targeting, to look at things a little higher in the sky, and just get away from the planets. The double cluster looked, beautiful as always. Just in Perseus there underneath the Cassiopeia. Trying to think what else. Oh, Mike was looking at some globulars through his 15 by 50 binoculars, which were pretty neat.
Yeah.
That is one good thing to do too. In times of bad seeing, sometimes just scaling down your aperture and scaling down your magnification, you can get by. You just look at different targets and you sort of change your approach, and you can still have a good night under the stars. Yeah.
You mentioned your mount. I did really enjoy seeing your mount and the Burlap chair in action. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. That mount, it's far too much mount for the telescope that I brought out. But I'm trying to figure out the tripod to put underneath the mount. And so part of me bringing it out was just a field test of the tripod and mount combination. I think I was relatively happy with it, but I think that mount is actually a little more stable on like it's an aluminum tripod that I have. Trying to think here. It came with the Twilight 2 mount that I have from Explore Scientific. So it's 2-inch legs and it's quite stable.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I might just go back to that.
Okay. You're not thinking, are you still thinking about getting the Burlap Planet or one of those?
Well, not the Planet. The Planet is just far too big and bulky and heavy.
Yeah.
And I don't need something like that. So there's no sense getting something quite that large. The unis really appeal to me. But, when I look in my garage and I look at this collection of tripods that I have, and like I said, like that Explore Scientific tripod, it doesn't have a mount on it right now. It works really good underneath at the Sky T. It's not as pretty as a Burlap. It's certainly like a Burlap tripod is almost like a piece of furniture. Like you could, in my opinion, you could set that up in your living room or your family room, and it'll just kind of fit in with your decor because it's like their work.
Clearly, your furniture is better than mine.
Yeah. So there's that, but like if I don't have to spend $800 on a tripod, I think I won't spend $800 on a tripod. I'll just use what I have.
Yeah. So is that is it the tubular aluminum or is it the one that's kind of sort of squared off kind of thing?
It's tubular, 2-inch legs.
Okay.
I forget the height that it extends up to, but it has a little spreader in the middle to add some stability. The thing that I hate about it is like the spreader has 3 cutouts for 1.25-inch eyepieces. But like it's really tight and it's in a bad spot, so it's hard to use.
Yeah.
And I really like having the ability, like I like a tripod tray so that when I'm at the telescope, I can have an eyepiece in the diagonal and then a couple of eyepieces in the tray. So that if I want to switch magnifications, I don't have to get up, grab the eyepiece and come back. I just have it there, right? And then I can sit in my comfortable chair and enjoy the observing. So that's the big downfall with the Explore Scientific tripod. And that's the one thing that still has me thinking, man, maybe I should get that Burlap. but again, at $800, I can walk 10 feet over to my eyepiece case and grab an eyepiece.
Yeah. The one thing I saw somebody doing this week is, well, you know how I have like although it's Pentax, it's meant for, I think, camera lenses, like that little camera lens bag. And that's kind of what I keep, because I only take out like 4 or 5 eyepieces in my diagonal and some filters, and it's sort of perfect for that. I've seen where a lot of people, or this one person anyway, was kind of just taking that and then just running the strap around the tripod and then just kind of having that there, and you just flip up the top and then your eyepieces. And I kind of meant to do that night, but I was messing around with that mount, as you know. So, that's one of the things I definitely want to try.
Yeah. Well, there are some creative solutions that you can do to store eyepieces on a tripod. Like some guys kind of take a wood plank, cut some 2-inch holes and some 1.25-inch holes. And depending on your tripod, you can mount that to the leg. And then just the natural angle of the tripod leg, like you drop your eyepieces in these holes and they're quite safe in there. They won't fall out, but then they're...
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So that's something I'm thinking about too.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But I was also excited to see your mount in action for the first time. I know we've talked a lot about it here on the podcast and as well as, texting back and forth, but man, I was really impressed with your Skywatcher AZ GTI.
Yeah, GTI. Is it the GTI? Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm just going to call it the GT, and whatever it is, it is.
Yeah, when you're ordering it though, I recommend not doing that. Yeah, I was really happy with it. I was baffled by a couple things. So when I've been using it on my deck at home with my, I've used it mostly with the 60 millimeter, but a few times with the 100. And in either instances, the deck is a little bit shaky, much less so with the 60. The 60, it's almost like it really is like a perfect match with that Manfrotto 028 or 55 or whatever it is, that tripod with the geared column. and then with the Skywatcher AZ-GTI with the 60mm Takahashi. It's a beautiful combination. The deck is a little unstable. I put the vibration feed underneath, and it's pretty much all good. But I did notice, like things were tracking for about maybe 12 to 20 minutes. And that's fine. Like that's kind of all I was looking for. And the same when I had the 100 on there. But then I was surprised that when I took it out there and set it up on Friday night, that it seemed to track for a lot longer. Like the whole time we had it on Jupiter, I don't know how long that was. It felt like at least half an hour, and it was just starting to get to closer to the edge of the field where, kind of like the field curvature and the chromatism in the eyepiece was starting to impact it. But it easily would have been still in the field for another 10 or 15 minutes. So that would have been the better part of 3/4 of an hour. And I don't know that I had quite centered it. So I was kind of surprised. It seemed like it was able to track much better out there. So I don't know if maybe just being around like my Wi-Fi and everything else that's going on in my house, and maybe being on the wobbly deck, I don't know, somehow something here seems to be impacting, because I set it up so many times here. I just was thinking that's just how it worked. So I was really surprised how long it tracked, because it did seem to track for a long time, didn't it?
Oh, it did. And you were pushing 100 times magnification, I think, with that eyepiece, right around there. So yeah, it did a really good job. The only thing I can think of maybe would be like when we were out at White Butte Trails observing last night. You're on the ground, so you can get kind of a better take on leveling the tripod because you're on the ground. Now,
and I didn't do it.
yeah, which is interesting. But I wonder if on your deck, if like, you maybe level it on the deck, but the deck is sloped or something like that, potentially. Well, because that can impact tracking sometimes, but I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard one to nail down.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is I did level the tripod on the deck. I can't recall if I used it or not. I think I did use it, and it didn't really seem to make that much of a difference. And then certainly when I had it out there, at our observing site there, I did not level it like 100%. So if it happened to be better leveled, I would have been. I mean, that would have just been a random fluke,
right?
That it was better leveled out there. So
yeah, because we set up kind of in darkness too, so it's a little harder to make sure things are level.
Yeah, we were on a bit of a hill, and I never adjusted the lags, and so I mean, a lot of things would have had to line up there for it to be better. I just couldn't imagine that it would have been better leveled.
Did you say line up?
Yeah. Oh, there goes the fly.
Oh.
I've got a fly in here today. Good stuff. Yeah. The one thing though I notice is not really as stable as I want it. Like on the deck, I'm not too surprised it's not that stable, even with the vibration pads. But I don't know that it was really appreciably stable, even setting up on like we're on soft earth, which is I think that's a pretty good surface to put a tripod on as far as vibration suppression would go. I think anyway.
Oh, sorry, just having a sip of coffee.
That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the ground is the best place to set your gear on. It's the most firm. Like you just can't beat it. The one thing I'll say, so your Manfrotto tripod, I have an earlier version of it. It's labeled a Bogan tripod, and then Manfrotto acquired Bogan and slowly, just kind of called everything Manfrotto.
Oh, like I think mine's so I bought it used 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm just calling it that because I think that's what most people, whenever I call it a Bogan, like nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's I think, I think it is that.
But
it doesn't
even
have the brand. No, it just doesn't even have the brand on it. But I'm pretty sure it's the Bogan. Yeah.
Right. So essentially, you and I have the exact same tripod, and I think if you replace that tripod, it'll be way more stable, because even that tripod with my 76mm tack, if I'm running it at f7.5, it's okay. But when I put in the Q extension, which then the physical tube is probably about as long as your 100.
I think it's longer.
Might even be longer, yeah. But it doesn't do well on that tripod. And even with like my Stellar View M2C mount, which is like that mount can easily handle that telescope.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more vibration than I
Okay.
would like.
Okay.
And,
Well, that's good to know.
yeah, so I think if you get a tripod with a little more capacity, or like you were even saying, taking the wood tripod off your Lapides mount, and if you can make it work with the Skywatcher mount, I think that'll take care of it too, because wood is just so much better with dampening and handling a load.
So yeah, and so this is like really like kind of a strange upgrade because so I've got I feel like I'm starting to drown in tripods too, because
Yeah.
I've got the tripod that the AZ GTI came with, and it really isn't that great. I kind of think that they should really offer it more as a package option only or something. Really, you should be buying the mount and the pillar, and then they should be trying to sell the PB70 pan base as an add-on to it, for those of us that are beyond the level of just like a brand newcomer. I think for a newcomer it's fine, but once you have some experience doing this, I think you want to get that pan base. It just really, really adds to it more than the tripod does. But yeah, like I noticed that they've now put out a slightly different version of the 1.75 inch stainless steel tripod, which is for this mount and some of their other mounts. And really, like, I mean, they should be selling that with it, but it's only, I think it's like around 150 Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically the same price as if I was to buy an adapter from Burlap or somebody else. Like that's what an adapter is going to cost me.
Okay.
And so of course it comes with like the tripod hub, which is kind of what I'm looking for. And then it comes with the legs as well. So it actually is essentially the same price to go and buy a whole new tripod than it is to try to get an adapter for my wood tripod, or so it seems anyway.
Right. Well, that seems like a good option anyway. And I think a 1 3/4 inch tripod would do wonders for it.
Yeah, I see there's an individual online I see, and he's done a couple of things I'm doing as well, where he replaced the saddle with the ADM, and I have that coming. Though he did the dual one, and I looked at the dual one, but I thought it started to add a little bit more weight and futziness. I don't have any Losmany plates anyway. And let's see, that one weighs 10 or 12 ounces, and this mount is only designed to hold 11 pounds. And so you're trying to really watch the ounces. And let's see, it can take the Losmany D plates and the regular Vixen plates, but I just bought the one that takes the Vixen plates because it's only about an ounce or two heavier than the original clamp. So I think that's a decent upgrade. So you get the main benefit of having a larger purchase. I'm kind of hoping, though, I'm going to wait until I get that and hope that takes a little bit more of the wobble out. I think that will help as well.
Yeah, it definitely will. The bigger clamp, and then if you decide to go down a tripod path, you'll have a really solid setup.
Yeah, I hope so. Because I'm really happy with the mount and the tracking. Oh, the one thing I noticed, or that night as well, is we could kind of see that pulsing a little bit. And there's two things that seem to be the culprits. So first of all, I haven't noticed that as much at home, but I have been trying to balance it a little bit better. And for whatever reason, I think just because like we hadn't been observing together, I was enjoying like our conversations more than I was actually setting up my gear. And so I didn't quite balance it as much as I should have. And I think that makes it more sensitive to any kind of pulsations or whatever. And then the other thing is that I noticed that people say when the batteries start to kind of run down a little, then it will start kind of giving less consistent motions. So I have been using those. That's probably, man, I'm going to say it has to be at least half a dozen 2-hour sessions, say that I've used those batteries for. So I think they're probably getting towards the end. People generally say they get maybe 6 hours, so I'm on 12 hours minimum.
The good thing though with using the lithium batteries is like a normal nickel cadmium battery will slowly lose its power right
Yeah.
from day one, right? And just
Yeah.
it's a slow drain. Whereas lithiums go at a much more consistent
Yep.
power rate all the way to the end, and then it's just done. Like they don't
Yeah.
trail off as much, which is
I
nice.
I have heard this mount is like particularly susceptible to any kind of, because I think it's running right at the limit.
Okay.
For whatever the limit is.
I should have brought my little Celestron power pack for you to try out.
That would have been good.
Yeah, maybe another time. So, were you looking at anything else this week?
Sorry, Shane, I just had to cough there, so I was looking for my mute button. My apologies. Yeah, so let's just take a look. So on that night, what all did you look at? You mentioned you looked at Jupiter and Saturn, some double stars, and a few DSOs. I mostly looked at Jupiter and Saturn and Mars.
Yeah, I looked at Almach in Andromeda, which I looked at a couple nights before that from my backyard. That is a really awesome double star. A lot of people talk about Alberio and Cygnus as a great double star to look at because one, like the brighter star is an orange star, and then, I guess in Alberio it's not a companion because it's not a true double system, but the other star right beside it is a blue star. So you see this orange and blue, and you can see the contrast in colors, and it's quite pretty. But I think Almach is way nicer to look at. The companion, well, first of all, Almach is a true double star system. In fact, I think it's a quad system. Although there's two stars that orbit around the blue star, and I don't know what their magnitude is, but I'm not sure you can see them visually. If you can, you probably need quite a large aperture. But anyway, the companion star is such a deep blue, like it just really pops out at you.
No, it did for sure. I had to look at it through your scope. Yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah. So I really recommend people take a look at Almach. Again, it's in a great position. It's a very easy star to find. You can see it from light polluted areas. It's a great double. So yeah, had a look at that. Although seeing last night, like we said, was kind of garbage. So the actual view of it was a little messy. I took a look at Polaris, which is another double star system. Just to confirm that seeing was indeed not very good across pretty much the whole sky. And then I looked at the double cluster, which I was actually surprised. Like I was using my Leica zoom. So at its lowest magnification, which is 18.9 millimeters, I think it gives about a 60-degree field of view. And I was able to fit pretty much all of the double cluster into one field of view, even though I had the extender in that telescope. So that was kind of a nice thing. But and then that was it. I looked at some stuff through Mike's binoculars, and checked out Jupiter and Saturn through your telescope as well.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look up. We noticed some meteors coming in. Like I think I saw like 3 or 4 different meteors, and are these meteors the ones from comet Neowise
already?
So because it's saying, I'm just looking at the American Meteor Association, and it says during this time moon reaches new phase on the 17th, looking at the sun.
Yeah, I definitely I think we all probably, I don't know, saw 3 to 5 meteors within a couple of hours. And I want to say that a lot of us didn't see the same meteor. We were all looking at different parts of the sky, and we were all seeing them all over.
Yeah,
there's some good activity.
Some of these are the cygnids. They peak on the 14th and 15th. The anthelions, and they peak around the same time. Epsilon Perseids, the New Eridanids. Sounds like some sort of punk band. Eta Aranids, the Linsids. I've never heard of any of these. The Sextantids, and the Sporadics. So yeah, seems like there's quite a bit, because we did see quite a few coming in. So I'm not really sure why this article on the American Meteor Society, it's like mentioning Neowise. The first 3 paragraphs are kind of not that clear. But yeah, I was just trying to figure out what maybe we were seeing, but I'm guessing it was some, or maybe some from all of those meteor showers.
Yeah. I guess maybe the point of that is if you are out observing and you're under moderately dark skies, like where we were 10 or 15 minutes outside of a city that has 250,000 people.
Yeah.
So while it was darker than the city, it certainly was not super dark. So if you're out, there's a good chance you'll see some meteors going on too, because, as you just listed, there's a number of meteor showers kind of peaking or occurring around now. None of them are, big number meteor showers, but it just means that you'll see some flashes of light up there probably.
Yeah. What'd you think of that site? We've gone out there a couple times now, and
what I like about it is it's a quick, like it's easy to get to. Like I just said, it's, from your house, it's probably about a 15-minute drive. And I think it's about the same from my house. Yeah. It's really close.
Yeah.
I love that it's not on the side of a road. Not that isn't an option, but
no, I hear you.
The thing with the side of the road is if somebody drives by, then you're, trying to get caps on everything so dust doesn't, interfere with your optics, and then there's also just like, you might have some encounters out there with a farmer that's wondering what you're doing in his field or something like that.
Yeah.
What I like about this site is it's a public space. It's like a nature preserve of some kind. There's trails through the trees. But the parking lot gets us far enough off the road that we don't really have to deal with the headlights, that annoyance.
Yeah.
And, there's trees and things around, so there's decent windbreaks. We do lose a little bit of the horizon, but overall, I like it. I think it's a great place to go, especially when the conditions are, maybe we're not sure what they'll be like, or if we just want to have a nice, easy session where we go out for an hour or two and then we go home. It's great for that.
Yeah, I kind of wondered, because I'm not really sure how far it is for you. And you had mentioned going to another spot, and we can certainly try that. Although I think that spot is going to be really far for me. I think.
Oh yeah, a lot farther for you.
Yeah. So I mean, if this spot's about like a 10 or 15-minute drive for you as well, it's about that for me. So that's good. Let's see. But yeah, I like how close it is, and I know you had some other stuff going on. So, it makes it really easy when, if you do have some stuff or whatever, or it's just not quite working out in your plans that day. Well, to set up your gear takes 10 minutes anyway. You throw it in the car and you drive 10 minutes. You're really only adding 10 or 15 minutes on to your session, at least in one direction, and then the same coming back. It makes it more doable, and especially where, there was so much grain dust around. One thing I like about that site, it's just high enough that we weren't really in the grain dust anymore. So I was really happy about that.
Well, and it's in an area where there's not a lot of like fields, right? Like farming fields right beside it, so you do have a little bit of separation from the agriculture that's going on around there, which is really good.
Yeah.
And, maybe one other thing too is like kind of how I like to rate some dark sites, like there's kind of the close sites, like what we're talking about, where you have a short drive and you're there. One of the keys is I have to be able to at least be able to see some of the Milky Way. If I can see some of the Milky Way, that tells me I'm getting dark enough that it's worth the 10 or 15-minute drive from my house.
Yeah.
And sure enough, at that site, the Milky Way was starting to come out, and we really weren't even there for astronomical darkness yet either. I don't think anyway. And it wasn't like
it was dark by 9, so we had about an hour of it, just about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just it is that bright there. Like, unfortunately, like that's there is some pretty good brightness. So.
Well, and because there's 3 major towns around there too.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a nice site. I like it. I'm sure we'll be back.
Yeah, you were saying about like being away from the agriculture. So it was around this time of year, and there was a new person in our club when you and I were more involved in the club, and I just found this pretty good little site. Again, it was on the edge of not really a nature preserve. It was like a little campground or something, but they had like this big area. I think you and I went and observed at one spot on it once. And then we actually went out there. You had your 12-inch. We looked at NGC 7331. I don't know if you remember that or not. But anyway, and I found another spot that was a little bit better there. So I was like really excited. So this person came to my house and we drove out to this spot. And it was great. You kind of could drive in. And I think it was like the day use area. And it was really nice, like good view to the east and west, and the south was okay. Like there was some little trees right there, but you were a little bit sheltered. And you kind of drove in, and sort of this land was on one side, and then the farmer's field was on the other. Well, of course, we just get set up, and here comes the farmer and the harvester with like the stadium lighting on it, right? You know what I mean?
Jeez,
Coming down, and then I'm like, okay, well, it won't be bad because that's a huge field, but no, he harvested right, like basically 100 or so meters away from us, and then turned around and then drove back only about another 100 meters and then turned around. And like he was there. It was going to take 2 to 3 hours to mow that field. And that was our session, right? It was brutal. So, and the chaff or whatever it is coming up. And you know what it's like. It was ridiculous. So.
Yeah. And kind of the crappy part, like our province is largely built on agriculture, and the economy really depends on it, so I support it wholeheartedly. But
I've worked in the grain business, so
yeah. The thing with like where it's kind of annoying with astronomy is we look at all kinds of weather forecasts to see if it's worth going out.
Yeah.
The one forecast you can't see is grain dust in the air and farmers, harvesting. So that's the one thing that you're rolling the dice on around here, where you go, and if you see a bunch of combines happening, are
keep
operating,
driving.
you just turn around or you keep driving.
Yeah, like James Edgar, who's one of our journal editors and editor for the Observer's Handbook. I was actually emailing back and forth with him that night. As well, and he sent me a photo. I should get permission and let you tweet that out, because like you can see like the dust is ridiculous. Like, and it's kind of actually bothering me a bit today. Like that's why I kind of had that pause there and had to cough, because even just from being out that night and just being around here, because the fields now fields used to end at my house. They used to turn the combines around 150 feet from my back door, but now they turn around maybe a mile or so from here. But even still, like we've had the wind blowing in the right direction, so we've been getting a lot of grain dust right here, even at the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, any thoughts on other observing plans for the autumn for you, Shane? Or
well, I haven't looked at the forecast yet for this week, but we're coming into new moon season for September. I would love to get down to Grasslands Park if A, the weather's good, and B, if we look at their reservation calendar and see that it's not too busy.
Yeah.
I'm all about getting to getting at least one good dark session in this year if we can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to do that. If that does not happen, I'll continue with the backyard observing. Mars is really starting to become a earlier evening target, so I'm excited for that. As well as probably some more short trips outside of the city, like what we did last night.
Yeah, right now I'm just looking at the forecast here, and not to put too much of a damper on things, and and I think I mentioned this before, but our mutual friend Kathleen, she's going down I think on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And right now probably Thursday, Friday are looking good, and then it's going to rain on Saturday, Sunday. So I've already booked the Friday off, just so you know. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that can already start to be a little bit problematic.
Yeah, it's not looking as good as I would like it to right now, but the weather can change a lot between now and then. So we'll keep our eye on the forecast. Yeah, Thursday night's looking great, and so is Friday.
Yeah, and I could be tied up because I'm trying to get my own site lined up, as you know, and that might happen this week, or that's when apparently we're supposed to be able to start sorting that out. So, and it comes with a warm room. So
nice. Yeah.
That's exciting. So we'll see if that pans out. But yeah, I mean that would be a good spot too. Only only 30 minutes away. So, yeah. So, any other gear on the way? You've gotten rid of the Masuyama. You've gotten the tripod and mount kind of on the way. The Burlap chair is very luxurious. I really like the way it all looked together. Really think you do need the wooden tripod just to have the matchy. And,
yeah. No, so last week, last week I received another TMB monocentric, super monocentric.
Okay.
I'm slowly trying to piece a set together, as I can find them.
Then I think you should just sell them for $4,500.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, I received the 9mm, which is a great focal length for the telescopes that I have. The Skywatcher 120 ED, and then the TAC DCU with the Q extender. I'm in that 900mm focal length. So a 9mm eyepiece gives me about 100 times magnification in both telescopes.
Oh, nice.
That's really nice. So I did test drive that eyepiece this week, and it's amazing. It's just like the rest of those TMB super monos. It's hard to complain about them. They're just a fantastic eyepiece. But I did kind of do a stupid thing when I got home from our observing session last night. So do you remember I was talking about, I found that Unitron for sale in Eastern Canada? Like, I wasn't sure if it was a 3 or 4 inch Unitron.
Okay, yeah.
Well, that one sold, which was good. I really didn't want it because I don't need it. But our website that has some auctions from overseas that we watch from time to time.
That we don't promote because of the addictive nature of it.
Yeah. So they had a classic telescope on there made by Royal Astro Optics. So if we go back to like episode 2 or 3 or whenever I talked about the
classic telescope chat.
Yeah. So one of the better makers of optics in the 60s and I think even going into the 70s and maybe going back to the 50s, kind of in that era, was Royal Astro Optics out of Tokyo, Japan. They just had outstanding quality control, so you got very consistent optics from them, and they were all consistently great. So if you can ever find an older telescope that was made by Royal Astro, you'll have a really good instrument. And Royal Astro made telescopes that were rebadged by like Tasco, Sears, Mayflower, possibly. A whole bunch, right?
Yep.
So anyway, with all this being said, I noticed a 76 millimeter f15, I think. So 76 millimeter aperture with a 1200 millimeter focal length.
And you already own the TAC 76.
Yeah, I know.
You've got a problem.
I have a bad problem. So the price when I went to bed was really low. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put in a low bid, and if I get it, great, because I'll get a steal of a deal here. But my low bid will easily be outbid, and I won't have it. So
yeah.
Anyway, I woke up and my very low bid was the successful bid.
Oh, wow.
So now I've got this giant telescope with a mount and, everything else coming to me. Now, I don't need this thing. Part of me doesn't even want this thing now, to be honest. But
what'd you say it was, like F11.7 or something like that?
No, it's like F15.
Moly, that's 12, huge.
It's 1200 millimeter focal length.
Well, at least now you got a spot to hang your gym clothes.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's like 15.8, so it's huge. Huge. But what I was kind of wanting, and I think this will actually fill the void. So, when we're observing in the wintertime, like it's going to be -20 most nights, and some nights that's a warm night, and that's -20 Celsius. Yeah. So when you take optics out and they get cold and you bring them in, condensation forms on them like crazy. And if you don't treat them right, that can actually degrade your optics quite a bit over time. So I was kind of wanting not a beater telescope, but like kind of a winter telescope that I can leave in the garage, and I'm not as worried about it, in terms of condensation and things like that.
Yeah.
So depending on, how good this Royal Astro telescope is, it might become my winter telescope that I just haul in and out of the garage and use it for that purpose. Because
Yeah.
a big telescope like that is a hard thing to package and take around, and
Yeah.
so you don't want to move it too far. But anyway, that's en route. So more more first light reviews coming
Wow.
in the future. Yeah.
That's exciting. That's interesting. Like that would be a really interesting planetary telescope. Sorry, what year? And sorry, is it a Royal Astro branded or another brand?
It's branded Royal Astro. Yeah.
Okay. And what year? Any idea?
I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. Like usually with the serial number, you're able to understand when it was built based on some of the numbers in there. So
okay.
I don't know for sure. I think it's a more recent edition, or maybe one of the last ones Royal Astro would have produced.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come in a wood box. It comes in a cardboard box, and it has the styrofoam inserts. So that usually means, it's not a super old one. But it has like this solar projection plate and just a whole bunch of stuff that commonly comes with those older telescopes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've always been really intrigued by the 3-inch long focal length classic telescopes. I am curious to see how it does on the planets. I think it'll be just like an amazing telescope on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll do actually quite well. So while I'm kind of talking negatively about this thing, I am excited to see it and use it, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes. With the price that I paid, I could easily get my money back, I think, if I decide to list this thing for sale. So
yeah, I've thought the same as you about getting. Like I also had lots of telescopes, but then I think I already sort of have that beater telescope. I just haven't. What's that?
Your 80s.
Oh yeah, one of the 80s, but no, I already did this years and years ago and bought. I have a beautiful. You've never seen it. It's a Santel 6-inch Maksutov Cassegrain.
Yeah, you've told me about this one, but yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's a Russian handmade telescope for observing in super cold conditions, like we have. So to actually sort out a way to get this mounted up somehow, some way, permanently, without too much expense, would be the trick. So one thing I really would like to do is to try to find some sort of like super Polaris type mount for it, and to get it properly mounted up. It's always been like on my long-term plan to do, because like you said, you keep it in the garage, and I'd like to get the ability just to roll it out in the driveway. And I think I paid, I want to say like $400 for it.
Okay. That's
it's
a great price.
Yeah. And it's a 6-inch, and it's one of those 6-inch Macs where they say, like it pretty much performs like a 4 or 4.5-inch refractor, and 100% it does, with a couple drawbacks, because it is rather heavily built. It does need to be cooled, but by keeping it in the garage, you would achieve that, or I would achieve that. And let's see, yeah, and it is a little bit futzy to mount, has some mechanical challenges, but for $400 or so, that's a pretty inexpensive telescope, really, as far as they come, for what essentially amounts to a 4 or 4.5-inch refractor like image once it cools. Now, you've never seen it here. I bought it when I lived in Ontario, because Ontario has, in the summers anyway, more stable conditions. And so if I was in my, and by air conditioned, it's a bit of a stretch, but if I was in my air conditioned, quote unquote air conditioned apartment, and I had it running about say 21 or 22 degrees in there ish, and then came down, threw it in the car, turned the air conditioner on, and then I went observing. Our observing sessions would start at about 20 degrees and wind up at about 18 degrees, over the course of 2 hours. So it would essentially be close enough to ambient that within a half hour or so, you were pretty much there with it, and you could have some great observing. But by the time I got it, and I sent it to back when, I forget the name of it, but it was a telescope store in Florida that used to import them. And just before they closed, I had it serviced there, and they did all the optics and cleaning and alignment and everything. And it came, and once it's aligned, it's aligned permanently. So anyway, I had all that done, so it worked beautifully, but I only ever used it for maybe, 3 or 4 times, and then we moved. So I did confirm it. You know, it is a beautiful, well-working telescope, but it's just been sitting in its soft case ever since. But you know, it's not a wide field telescope. When we go out, we go to dark skies here, unlike in Ontario, we go to dark skies here. I mean, they are dark, and you can really take advantage of a wide field instrument versus, you know, just having, this is pretty much just dedicated planetary machine, which is great for being in the city and looking at the planets like we have this year. But yeah, I would like to get it running. So yeah, just too many little projects, you know, not enough time.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So anything else this month or this week that you wish to discuss or add? I think we're sort of at the end of the show notes here.
Yeah, no, that's it for me, Chris.
All right. Well, again, it was great observing with you and Mike the other night. And I think Mike said he was actually going to maybe try to join us on one of these sessions and have a bit of a chat. So, you know, hopefully that will work out. I think it would be a lot of fun to have a few people join us from time to time, just for some variance and variety or whatever, you know, just to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to that for sure.
Yeah. So how can people get in touch or stay in touch with us, Shane?
You can find us on Twitter. We are at Actual Astronomy. You can email us, actualastronomy@gmail.com. And you can also leave feedback on any of the podcast platforms that you find us on. And we will respond to any and all comments and messages and whatever else comes our way.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Shane. Really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. And thank you to everybody for listening.